Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here doing an unboxing and review for my Megaman ZX Zero figure. It's an S.H Figuarts figure, as you can see right there. This is actually like my third time doing this video. This is my first time doing it today, so I've technically opened this thing up. And the reason that this is actually the third time is because I had a lot of issues with this thing. Lift that up a little, just a little. I had a couple issues with this thing. And so I kind of want to do the good stuff first before I get to the bad stuff, because that's why it's taken me 3 times to do this, because the bad stuff with this figure comes from little pieces, and it just takes forever. Even like once I'm showing it off, it's like this is really difficult to actually put together. So I'm going to start off with the good stuff first, and then we'll get to the crappy stuff after, and hopefully that'll allow me to do it within the time frame that my camera will actually record. So to start off with the good, the figure itself is actually pretty cool. It's the, like I said, it's the Megaman ZX0, so it'll zoom in, there it is. So it's the skinnier version, which personally for me, I think is a bit cooler. I definitely like it. Looks cool. It does, of course, it comes with the classic Zero hair, which is another good thing. Simple to also attach, it just goes into a little slot. The hair is fairly adjustable. Like there are 2 different ball joints, so it has a ball joint like right here, which you can't really see because this piece right here actually covers up the little space in between. But it can move there, and then you can move, but you can move it from the second ball joint, and the hair itself actually can, be moved in 2 different ways. So I think that's cool. Each half of the hair can be separated. Each can go down, both go up. Do one up, one all the way down if you want to, or kind of do like some tail stuff from Sonic or something. But it's really cool. That's very simple. It's easy to insert. Sometimes it can be a little difficult because it's such a tiny piece, and because it's like ball joint based, you can move it around, and how I just kind of took it out like that. It can be really easy to accidentally pull it out of the back of his head, but it's really simple. It's simple to get in. It's simple to adjust. It's actually pretty good for balance, oddly enough, so certain poses actually work based on how you position the hair, because it does have weight to it. Another really good thing, of course, tons of articulation on this thing. So the head, yeah, you can kind of wiggle it left and right, but it's definitely meant to go backwards and forwards. The arms, you can, twist the hands because they're on ball joints. You can twist the entire arm because there's a ball joint up here at the shoulder. So of course, once you bend it down, you can do up and do, stuff like that. I unloosened this a little bit because I just kind of twisted the whole thing, so it's kind of pulling out the little peg. So that's why the gauntlet kind of moved. But it has a lot of different points of articulation. Very simple. Do tons of different poses and stuff. The torso actually moves quite a bit. Both parts of the torso do actually. So you have the middle portion of the torso that can definitely go fairly far up and down. It can also go a bit to the left and to the right. It actually goes quite a bit to the left and to the right. But the bottom portion of the torso also moves like just a little bit for kind of an added measure. It kind of moves around just a little bit extra. The legs kick out just a bit because they do get a bit wider, so you can kind of force it in a little bit. If I can stand up so you can see. So you can kind of force it in just a little bit there. But that's pretty simple. Of course, the knee kind of bends almost 100% backwards, so that's pretty nice. And the ankles are actually pretty good too. The ankles, yeah, you can twist the whole foot around. You can actually move the foot up and down, kind of like a normal figure. If there's a lot of articulation, this figure pretty much has it. And you can also move the feet the tiniest bit, side to side, like just a little bit, but just enough to where you can actually visibly see that it makes a difference. And I don't know if I can really kind of show it off right while holding it, but you can kind of see that it's sort of sticking out just a little bit. Like, it's kind of hard to see. I don't know. That should probably help. That should be a bit more obvious, yeah. So you can move it, the ankles kind of in and out, and you can actually do a couple of extra positions because of that. So I think that's actually really cool. I think it's a really good feature. Also, you have 4 different sets of hands. So you have what I have right here, which are just the simple closed hands, they're just balled fists, so very simple like that. And I'm gonna dump all that out. And then you have the open hands, which can be used once it zooms in. Kind of have the open hand here, which is kind of shown off in this picture, and you can kind of see he's kind of guiding it a little. The spear kind of guiding it down with the open hand. So you have that. You have the sort of, it's close to the fist, but it's a little bit open, has like a bit of an open space. I can't really get it to focus right. So you can kind of see the hole there, and that's for the sword and the spear. And then you have his gun hands, which of course have one finger out for the trigger. I don't know why I can't seem to get it to, there it is. So it has like one finger out for the trigger. And the good thing about that is each different type of hand is for both hands. So you have a left and a right for every different type of hand. If you want him to have the gun in the right hand, you can. Left hand, you can. Open left hand, open right hand, sword, right hand, and the spear in the left hand. You can do that all at the same time. So that I really love. This is actually the gun right here. And the gun, I think, is pretty cool. Once again, there it is. So the gun, I think, is pretty cool. And it's fairly simple. It's not exactly easy to get on for me because the fingers do bend back as well. So for the open, the gun hand, the fingers can bend back a little bit. I know that won't really show up too well because it's such a tiny hand. I can't really, do much to get my giant fingers out of the way of it. But you can move the fingers around a bit, so that does help actually get the gun in there. But it's still a little difficult because with the hand being so tiny, it's not exactly easy to like find a way to prop them open and get the gun in when you're using most of your finger to hold this tiny little hand open. So it's still not exactly easy for me to do it, but once you get it, it's there. So it's not like the worst thing in the world. It just might take a bit of time. Also, if you have more practice with figures, maybe it would be a bit easier for you. And just lift the finger up, boom. So for me personally, I think the easiest way is just to start with the bottom of the gun, because the bottom of the gun is actually the smallest little part. So I'd say just stick that in the opening and then kind of force the rest of the gun down until you get to the trigger. So that's how I do it. I think the sword and the spear are actually much easier to do with these hands. You can actually kind of just use the actual hilts of the blade and kind of just shove it down a little bit, and the hands open up wide enough, and then they'll close right back up, and boom, they're right on there. And as far as replacing the hands, super easy. All the hands are on tiny ball joints. Pop them on, pop them off, and it's incredibly easy. It's right on there. They do spin all the way around if you want them to. It might throw off immersion a little bit, of course, because the gauntlets are here, so that they'll kind of keep track of where everything is. But that's pretty cool. The face is actually changeable as well. So of course, right now I have the sort of the calm zero face, and then I have the sort of action zero face. And this is where I'm going to kind of get into some of the more difficult stuff, because when I first did this, like I did it super easy just now, but when I first did it, I could not figure out for the life of me how to switch the face. And even with the instructions, they didn't really show you much. They just show like, this is basically the part of the helmet that comes off. And that was pretty much it. And it's like, okay, the helmet comes off, but I don't know where at. And when I first did the figure, it was really hard to get off, and that's why I wasn't sure I was pulling at the right part. So I was kind of freaking out because, of course, I didn't want to break it. So, and even now, it's still like, it's very tough to kind of pull it off. So the way I do it is actually by putting my thumb underneath the front of the helmet, and then I kind of just pull. Well, I kind of popped his head off just now, but I kind of pull to kind of get the helmet off. So that's something I feel like is worth mentioning, because it's a bit tough. Like, it's a little tough to do that. But that does lead me to something else, actually. There's two more good points about it. So this little piece right here actually comes off. And although it gets rid of a part of the costume, once you pop the head back on, it actually allows for you to do a bit more positions. And I think that's cool. Like, I'm trying to get it on there, but I keep moving the ball joint right now. There it is. So if you take that tiny little neck piece off, you can move his head even further down or even further back. So if you don't mind not having that little piece there, which is technically a part of the costume, as long as you don't mind that, really, you can technically have a bit more range as far as how far the head goes down or how far the head can actually be pulled back. So I thought that was pretty cool, and it was a nice little addition to it, because of course they didn't need to do that. It could have just been the outfit, but it's like, if someone wants to remove it just to have a little bit, a bit more freedom with it, they can do that. So I thought that was actually very cool, a nice little addition. And this is another cool, very, very interesting detail to attention. And these tiny little things right here, these little top parts, are technically supposed to be like the hilts of the sword and the spear. And you can pull these out as a part of immersion. And it's a little, there it is. It's just a tiny little thing. You just take it out, and basically it's, oh, he has the sword in his right hand, so he would have picked it up from here, so then you take that piece out. And it's super duper tiny, and it just pops right in and pops right out. But once again, that's another nice little feature, and it's also kind of a part of the bad side, as well as the little neck piece. So there are a lot of small pieces. Like, these hands are fairly small. The hands, are so-so. It's really the color of the hands that's the biggest issue. If you have like any sort of dark things, it's like, you might be able to find it because of the whites on the hands, but they're kind of dark purple, and it can be fairly easy to lose them because they're so small. And the same goes for, that little neck piece. And also with the hair, I mentioned that this little piece covers up the space between the ball joints, but this can actually come off. And I don't know why. I guess they did that once again for a bit more freedom, because technically you can move it backwards and do little extra stuff that you couldn't do if you had this piece on. So once again, for a little bit of extra freedom, you can detach this little piece. But if you want it there where it's like, oh, it's a solid hair, you can keep it on there. But it is a really small piece once again, so highly recommend just holding on to all the plastic in the box, or just get like a really small box that is solely made for pieces to this figure. And then one of the other things that I don't particularly like, and this was like the big issue that I had with this entire figure, but just to show off two more small little pieces. So the gauntlets actually come off. That is my least favorite thing, and I'll kind of get to that. And then we also have, these are the ball joints on the hands. Super, super tiny, so got to be careful with those. But my main issue with these gauntlets is that they don't really snap to anything. So you can have like your ball joints, which you're technically supposed to put into the hands, and then basically you hold these, you hold the gauntlets up to this, because they don't snap onto the forearm either. Like, they kind of do a little bit, but yeah, like that, the slightest touch knocks it off. And I'll actually show you guys with this, and this is another thing I didn't really like. So the shield comes with its own little gauntlet, and this is why this is the only thing you have to take the gauntlets off for. And technically, you can only take it off for the right hand. It doesn't, there are two separate gauntlets that attach to this that go in opposite directions. So that was one thing I didn't like, is that the shield can only go on the right hand, appropriately at least, because the gauntlet is facing the same direction as this one, with the longer point going, you can't even see it, going down, I guess, or going back, towards zero. So technically you have to do it using the right arm, and that was one thing I didn't really like. I was like, oh, that's, just something that kind of limits you. So that I thought was a little bit annoying, and I'll actually just try to fit it on there. And this will kind of show you guys, this is like the big thing that was always slowing me down every time I was doing this. So I will do, I guess I'll just go with the right hand. And basically, what you're supposed to do is kind of sit the gauntlet, or sit like the hand on the gauntlet, but it doesn't snap into the gauntlet. So you're kind of just stuck with this, and that's pretty much it. And you can try to force it in a little bit, because when I was messing around with it before, I heard it sort of snap, but it's not the easiest thing to do, and it seems like it only really snaps into place after it's actually, on the hand. And I actually just completely broke it. Like, I just broke it. Like, seriously, I just broke the shield piece because it messed up. So I could probably just glue that back on, but that really sucks. So there's that. Like, that's why it's such a big deal. Like, the fact that it is seriously so difficult to put that on there is an issue. And I didn't think that would be. I didn't think it would actually break. I probably should have known that because it was such a tiny piece. So that kind of sucks because now I can't use the shield until I figure something out and, like, glue it. Well, I guess all I have to do is glue it back together because technically this little gauntlet, it only goes to the shield. So honestly, gluing it on there won't be an issue for me. So that's actually about as easy of a fix as it gets. And then maybe if I put enough where it actually takes out the little, because there's a little extension piece that's supposed to be on this, that's what broke off. And it broke off inside of here. If it shows it, like that little white space, like right there, is like the little piece that kind of broke off. So that sucks, of course. But that's what I'm talking about. Like, it's so difficult to do this because it doesn't snap. And that's like the biggest issue I have with this thing, is that it's not really like, it doesn't snap onto this or even onto the hand, which I thought was the stupidest thing. It was like they really should have changed the shield, because I feel like that's the only reason the gauntlets come off. Because if this one comes off, I guess they thought it just makes sense to take the other one off too. But technically, since the shield only can go on the right hand because it's the only way that it matches, and you can't do upside down, because if you flip this upside down, then it's on the bottom of his hand, so it doesn't look right if you actually look at it. Behind the shield, you probably wouldn't be able to notice it. But once you pick it up, it's like, oh, this, the gauntlet is like upside down and stuff, and it's not meant to be on the left hand, it's meant to be on the right hand. So with that, I'd say is the biggest issue, and that's the one thing that makes me not like this, is that they made these gauntlets come off when instead, or even if they come off, they could have done something with this where it snaps onto the hands, but it doesn't. Like, it has like that tiny thing where it's like, oh, I heard it snap. But if you do like the slightest movement, it'll just pop right off again. So it's like, it's sort of a superficial snapping where it's like, it's such a tiny little fit where it's like, if you just move it a little, it'll fall right off. And then with it not snapping to either this or that, and kind of doing the same thing where even if it snaps to this, it's super, super light, it's sort of this exact same issue where once you do something, once you have like any sort of little movement, it pretty much comes right off again. So what you're supposed to do is attach the hands to the ball joints and basically just place the gauntlet, and you kind of have to just hold it up like that and then put the piece in. And that, it's not as easy as you think, mostly because the ball joint actually moves. So it's like the good part of it where you can move the wrist around a bunch, which is awesome, is also the hard part of actually putting it on there, because it moves around so much when you're trying to like fit it straight down onto the thing. And so if you do it, nice and slow, it works. And then once you get it down, it's like you kind of have to just figure it out a little. And there it is. So I got that. And that's probably the best. And honestly, that's because I've been doing it, so long, I figured out how to do it. But that is without a doubt the worst thing about this. And that is, excuse me, like I said, that's why it took this third time of me doing it. Because, excuse me, it's such a difficult task just to do that, because these stupid gauntlets move around so much. And then, of course, that's another thing. Like, once they're even on there, if you move the gauntlet around, it just gets looser and looser. So, of course, you have to be careful with that, which there would be no reason that you'd actually be messing around with the gauntlets, anyway. But they move around. They get fairly loose. So that kind of sucks. That's honestly, like, the biggest issue I had. The face thing, like I said, was just, it was stuck on there. So I didn't want to break it, and I figured that's where it split, but I was like, just in case. So that was just something like that was difficult the first time, and it's still kind of how I have to pull it off, but that wasn't an issue. It's really like the gauntlets, and it really does suck. I actually like broke the thing off, so that really sucks. I'm gonna have to like tape that together. But even without that, because like I said, fortunately, this only goes to the shield, so it's not like this gauntlet goes to anything. Like it even has like the little side piece, like, oh, this only goes to the shield because it has the little piece to like fit onto the tiny piece that comes off on the shield. But you know, like that doesn't even bother me that much because I kind of don't like it, like because it forces me to deal with the stupid gauntlet stuff because I have to take the gauntlet off, and then it's just like, oh well, I have to put it on the right hand. I can't even put it on the left hand, which clearly doesn't make much of a difference. It's not like it's going with the game where it's like, oh, he's either right-handed or left-handed. You know, it's just like you have a figure, you can do what you want, but they like limit the shield, and then they kind of did it in a sort of stupid way. I felt like they could have done something else, and maybe not because I was thinking about it. Like maybe they would have to do it, with the gauntlet. But even if they did, it's really the issue is really with the fact that the gauntlets do not snap into anything until you like finally get it all the way down. It kind of snaps in with the big ball joint, which is, I'm sure you can manage it, but it's hard to do that, just holding the gauntlet and then trying to put the other little ball joint on there. So it's like that's a little difficult, trying to just snap it into place. And that's kind of my biggest issue with it. Like I would love it if I could just push this down and it was like nothing. And it keeps looking like that. Like every time I'm pushing it, it's like, oh, it looks like it's just going straight down and like it's gonna snap right into place. And then it doesn't. And it's like feel like I'm pushing it all the way down about as far as it'll go. And it's just not the case. Like it just keeps looking like it'll go a little bit further and snap. But just me holding it is not solid enough. Like it basically already has to be on the hand, or I could probably try doing it without the hand on there, but then that's a little bit harder because it's just the actual ball, and even that's that in itself is super duper tough for me at least. So I don't know if you have like really good composure, and then that kind of starts to hurt my finger because I'm pushing on the top of this ball to try to push it down. So it doesn't snap onto the ball joints. It doesn't snap onto the wrist. It's just, there. Honestly, it's like it's just that little thing, and you kind of have to hold it like this, and then put something else on it, or to put the ball joint on it, and then you have to like work around that because it doesn't snap to either side. And I thought that was such a stupid thing, because that's what makes it so tough to, reattach the gauntlets if they come off. Which, like I said, you'd only have to deal with the right hand, unless you wanted to put this on the left hand, which you could, because of course the arm would be behind the shield, so you wouldn't see the gauntlet anyway. So that's my biggest issue with it, and I feel like it's a huge issue, honestly, because it causes such a big problem just putting the hands on there. It's much easier when you actually have the hand or fist. But that's my review, because once again, my camera is super close to the end, so this may or may not actually cut off again, but this will be my last time. I just want to say now, thank you guys for watching. But I would love to know what you think about it. If it, I would still recommend it, because it's just the issue with the shield. Like that's the only reason, like I said, you'd even have to deal with the gauntlets. That's just a big issue for me, because it shouldn't be that difficult to just make it where it clicks to one or the other. Either it's easy to put it to